Hello, my beautiful friends, my fellow space blobs, earth blobs, sparkly blobs, whatever form or archetype or emotion or energy you are connecting with in this moment as we're sitting together. I am so glad that you are here and that you are forging through this life with all its complexities and questions. And I appreciate these little moments that we get to sit here together so much. I felt that eclipse season in really powerful ways. So, moving into this Scorpio new moon energy that helps us close out this little bit of an energetic reset is a really beautiful place to feel like we can take a breath and just be with however we have changed in life, whatever's been coming up. Just be with the questions and the unknowns that we may be sitting with at this time. There's a really beautiful sense of perspective and care moving through the Scorpio new moon that I think will really, really hold us so beautifully as we move through these last days of Scorpio season, as we move through this tender part of the year. So with that in mind, let's explore some of the themes, what's going on with this new moon, and then I will pull some cards at the end to have a little bit of an intuitive reading and moment of exploration. This new moon is such a beautiful reflection of the process many of us have been moving through, not just during the energetic shifting and reworking that we've been moving through in this eclipse season last month, but also over the last couple of years. So let's talk about the details here and what conversations these are bringing up. We have the sun and the moon conjunct in Scorpio, creating that new moon, and they're very close to Mars. Mars is just a couple of degrees away. So sun, moon, and Mars are conjunct, having this beautiful conversation about different aspects of ourselves and what each of those aspects is wanting to express or needs right now. Now, these three energies in Scorpio are opposing our friend Uranus and Taurus. And this is really mimicking a lot of the energies we have been working with pretty regularly for the last couple of years, and most recently during that Taurus lunar eclipse, where there's been a lot of focus on the Taurus-Scorpio axis and how these work together, this death and rebirth axis that is so important in understanding our creative cycles and when things want to release and when things want to come into the world, and how we work with that rhythmic nature and how we work with the mysteriousness of that process. So this new moon not only helps us to incorporate all of that energy we've just been exploring during the eclipses, but also to explore what was going on when the North Node was in Taurus and the South Node was in Scorpio, all of 2022 pretty much, and the first half of 2023. So for anybody who is working deeply with that or has felt like the last couple of years were quite a sea change for you, you might find that this new moon is quite personal and very helpful for you. And I want to reiterate that here, that this is a new moon of somewhat harmonious energy, where although we're having an opposition here with Sun, Moon, and Mars opposing Uranus, that this is really about an illumination in the darkness of the new moon of how we've changed and taking a breath. And that actually brings me to my first note that I have here about this new moon. This is a new moon that is about deep integration. And I know we often think about new moons as planting seeds and dreaming and vision boarding, which is great. If you're feeling that, obviously go for it. But I think along with that, understanding that a whole bunch of energy has just shifted around in the subtle level of the world. So yes, and also right in our faces when you think about the state of the world and a lot of the energies that are moving through there. But also I think on a personal level, a lot of us felt a reorganization going on and new information coming in. And I think a lot of times we feel like we should have it figured out, like know what it means, know how to work with it, know how to incorporate it, know how to move forward on it right away. But I just want to take a moment here right at the beginning of our chat to acknowledge that it takes time to allow new information, new viewpoints, new energetic conversations to settle into our bodies, settle into our minds, find pathways for expression that feel good. So it's just a reminder that it's okay to go a little bit gently here. A lot of times the bigger the energetic move around and shift around that occurs, the more time we're going to need to allow that to flower and blossom and show itself to us. We can't really rush that process or force it through. I always like to think about when I realize that I've been changing in a really big way and I can feel that energy's moved around. I always feel like I need to create the next thing right away. I need to go for it. I need to make it happen. And I call it panic creation. When I can tell that I've changed and I want to have some control over how it's going to play out in my life. So I will get into a state of panic and try and create it all and get my mind wrapped around it. And of course, that's a very frustrating task. I only recommend it to experience contrast and remember like, oh yeah, okay, even if I wanted to push ahead, it feels a little bit clunky. I think during this Scorpio new moon, it's really nice to dream really soft focus. So you might be feeling some inklings of new ideas and new energies moving through, and to just hold that really gently and also allow there to be a little bit of space for fogginess, for not knowing, if you happen to be like I am at the moment, of just feeling a bit foggy on how it's going to play out. What exactly this next creative cycle that's trying to land is trying to show us. If you are in that space, that's totally understandable. And it's a beautiful place to be, even though it can feel really uncomfortable for certain parts of ourselves. So just a note of encouragement if you are in the fog because your creative cycles are in a shift point at this time. I am right there with you. I would be happy to chat about that more. So let me know if you want to hear more about creative shift points and how to kind of hold that energy as you move through it. The next note that came up for me as I was exploring the Scorpio new moon has to do with harmonizing and calibrating. Because when I noticed that Sun, Moon, and Mars are going to be here in this conversation, I thought, what an interesting meeting of three energies. Because we have, of course, the sun and moon. New moons happen all the time. Sun and moon meet up all the time. But the sun, is our natural self moving through the world, just going about life without thinking about it too much, the way we like to sit on the sofa, the thing we like to do, the craft we like to do when we're feeling like we want to relax. And then, Mars here in the conversation, that goal-oriented self, the part of ourselves that wants to experience what it feels like to move through something, to focus on something, to feel the process of movement forward happening. And then the emotional landscape of the moon, that part of ourselves that needs deep tending to, listening to, intuitive knowing. And I think that lineup of those three, especially Mars coming into the mix there, is really interesting because it asks some questions about internal versus external motivations. Whenever Mars gets into the conversation, I love to explore how I am motivating myself to move through my life. This is a really great place to reflect on the things that we feel we have to do, that we must pursue in order to be loved, in order to be safe, in order to be nice to ourselves at the end of the day. And what things are we really wanting to sustain from a deep, true place? And really noticing what's the conversation there. This is a great place. I have to check in here pretty much every month of my life, but right at this moment, as we are in this creative cycle shift point, what are you noticing you kind of have to force yourself to keep doing, even though you might have loved it once? And what are you noticing you're also grieving is leaving or shifting shape or changing? And also, what is your soul longing to start working on? And how can we get that Martian energy on board with our natural selves that we're not forcing through the world, as well as our emotional selves? How can we have those three work together? And I will be doing a visualization and a journaling practice for this over on my Patreon if you want to explore harmonizing these parts of yourself and feeling a lot more of cohesion and conversation between these three. I'd love to see you there. The final note I have for this Scorpio new moon is going to reflect on this opposition to Uranus. For me, that opposition, like I said, is like an illumination, despite the fact that we aren't having a full moon. This is a new moon, so it's not an illuminated night in the physical sense of things. But oppositions, I think, will always illuminate how we're changing, shifting, growing, or what we're longing for. And this particular illumination is about accepting how we've changed and taking a breath about it. I think so often there's parts of us that feel really proud of how we've changed and like, yeah, I did it. I went there. I did those things. And then there are other parts of us that maybe feel like we could have done better. We could have done it differently. We could have done it faster. We could have, made different choices and used our energy in a different way. And I think this opposition really is asking each of us to make peace, asking each of us to make peace with how we've changed, what that's felt like, and it's okay. Even if we have elements of that journey that we wish we could have just done a little bit different, or we wish we had the wisdom we have now and we could give it to that version of ourselves from 2 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. There's a really deep love here in this opposition and a really deep grace for the whole process. And I think this is really important, this sense of kind of release and grace, because if we're going to begin new energetic creative cycles, if new visions want to start to land and start to percolate and start to show themselves, they'll have an easier time doing that and coming in if we've created a little bit of space by releasing tension and self-control and tightness around who we think we need to be and how we think we need to do it. And I would honestly say, when I look at this Scorpio new moon, it's about releasing tension. It's about giving ourselves just a moment to have a little bit of catharsis, have a little bit of daydreaming, and just feeling the spaciousness of not knowing what's next. Scorpio is always going to invite mystery into the conversation and the mysteriousness of who we're becoming next and how that's going to feel. And I think every time I think about this, because I'm in a really mysterious space right now in my own personal journey and the work that I'm doing and just how I'm living a life. And it's really uncomfortable because it takes a little while. It takes time to be in that mystery. It doesn't just happen in 2 weeks. It can sometimes take several years of deep mystery and every day waking up with some questions about how it's going to work out. And I found this throughout my life. And I'm there again. And it always feels like you're doing something wrong if you're in the mystery for too long. But I'm just here to say that it's normal to feel a little uncomfortable and to be here for a little bit. But this is also where a lot of the best information about who we truly are and what we truly want to create is waiting for us. And having these soft moments of just accepting that mysteriousness can be really, really helpful. So now it's time for our intuitive reading, our storytelling, our exploring, our digging into the deep richness of sharing a moment here together. And I decided today I needed a little cheering up. So I'm bringing in the Cat Tarot by Megan Lynn Cott. And I love it. I highly recommend it if you want to bring a little smile to your readings. And if you happen to love cats, you will love this deck. It's got a great sense of humor and also is just really, really fun and rewarding to work with, some different perspectives. But let's see what 3 cards want to join us here in this conversation into this intuitive, watery, mystery new moon that is deeply encouraging us to sit with that mystery long enough to let it land. And 2 cards already fell. We have Knight of Swords and Queen of Swords. I love Queen of Swords. I love her expression. I've had a cat like this in the past who would always have this expression. She just always looked so pleased with herself laying around. I love that. It's really interesting to have these energies of mental clarity, mental insight, and cutting through into seeing something more clearly. I think that there is an element to this whole process that also is there. Sometimes leaning back into the mystery allows us clarity. When we're trying to force our way forward, it'll feel like the answer just does not come. And then as soon as we kind of give a little space and we just say, okay, I don't know, sometimes the clarity will come in. And another card is sitting right here. I'm going to pull it out. It is the Queen of Pentacles. All right. So a lot of the royalty coming through in our conversation today. 3 cards that have that energy, which I think is really interesting. It reminds me how this is a reminder that the world can be really overwhelming and there might be a lot of decisions to make, but finding that integral self here is one of the best things we can do for ourselves in moving through the world, and reestablishing that centered authority within is so important and powerful. So just that reminder, I think, and it feels really nice to feel that settling in just as I'm sitting here. So let's talk through these intuitive cards. So we start with the Knight of Wands, or the Knight of Swords. I'm sorry, the Knight of Swords. And I love this card. I've always loved the Knight of Swords in general, and this cat in particular is having a great time chasing something in the clouds. But Knight of Swords is about that part of ourselves that's willing to just try stuff out, just go for it without over editing, without being a perfectionist. And that's always been something I've really loved about the Knight of Swords. And of course, there's like no filter on Knight of Swords energy. It's just kind of like go for it. And I think this reminds me of that Martian influence here in this new moon, that part of ourselves that just wants to go out there and experience what it's like to try something. And I do think that that's a really great place to explore. You know, what is it that you just want to try? You know, life is short. You don't know what tomorrow will bring. So what would you try if you knew that you were definitely going to fail, but it was going to be worth it, or that you would not fail and it was going to be worth it? I think Knight of Swords always reminds us that there's a playfulness to anything that we are trying to do and exploring that. And then we get into these queen energies, which have so much more to do about being true to ourselves. I think whenever I see queen energy in tarot, for me, this is about really owning whatever it is that we actually want to do. Queen of Swords, for me, has always been the queen of integrity and honesty and incisiveness. I particularly love this Queen of Swords. It's just so good. Her little claws are in the sofa material. It makes me smile. But Queen of Swords, for me, whenever I see any image of her in any guise, it's just this ability to see through all the layers into what is truest. And that discernment and that ability to see what is really, really true is such a relief. You know, like allowing ourselves to really see who we are. I think also it's a deep honesty. You know, if you've been like trying to keep up some project that has just felt off, you know, you felt like you've been forcing it through, like this is just that moment of deep honesty, of admitting, maybe I want things to shift a little bit, even though I don't know how to do all of that quite yet. Maybe I'm ready for that. I think this is just a moment of integrity with ourselves and just giving ourselves a little bit of breath in the whole process. And then we end with Queen of Pentacles, who's enjoying looking for her treats in the little labyrinth here. And Queen of Pentacles is a reminder to take care of your nervous system, take some deep breaths. I've always felt like Queen of Pentacles is that really capable energy. It's the part of ourselves that will know what to do. We'll be able to tend to it, you know? Oh, you got to drink that glass of water, you know, just eat a little something, lay down for 5 minutes and breathe. Reach out to a friend, whatever it is. You know, the Queen of Pentacles is that really capable part of ourselves that knows how to care and tend for. And I think this is such an important part to bring forward. Often when I think of Queen of Pentacles, I think of the capital S self in internal family systems practice and process that is so much about that part of ourselves that can hold all the other parts. I'm really curious to hear from you how this recent eclipse season has been feeling, or even just how this last couple of years have been feeling. Because I know for me, this has been 2 years of some of the deepest transitions of my life, and the creative mystery has been such a huge part of it. And I've had to sit with the creative mystery pretty much every single day as I move through my day. So I'd love to hear from you, because I think the more we share these stories, the more it feels like, oh yeah, this is a part of it all. So please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be doing that reflection and incorporation of the sun, moon, and Mars energy. If you are interested in that, over on my Patreon. I'm also preparing a really gentle, lovely series that takes us over the threshold into the new year. It's going to be 4 weeks, and it's going to be so nourishing, that I'm going to be offering over there as a really gentle way to move through the new year without it being about self-improvement and kind of bombastic intensity, but instead about a really deep, true sense of working with our natural rhythms and what's feeling truest. So I'd love to see you for that. And of course, I love it when you're here, or if you want to join me on Instagram or my website. I would love to see you in all of those places. I am so grateful for this little moment that we shared here together on this sensitive, dark, gray day here in Stockholm. I hope you are doing well wherever you are, and we will meet here again. We have so much coming up, including Sagittarius season, December notes, and I have some goodies and surprises in store in the weeks ahead as well. Some little surprise videos, so be sure to subscribe if you want to get notified about those next little glimmers that I will be sharing. Looking forward to seeing you back here very, very soon.